Mum, what can you tell us about your mother?
My mother was born in 1891. She was a twin, and she was the third set of twins that my grandmother had. She left school at 14, having gone to the little village school. Her sister Bessie, who had been born before her, was probably much brighter, sharper than my mother. My mother appeared to be very gentle, but in fact she had a mind of her own and almost always got her own way.
Was she a churchgoer?
The church in the village was kept for a harvest festival because Howell Harris and his reformers had come to the village and had brought the Methodist Revolution with them. So people who had been churchgoers for generations untold became chapel goers, but they retained the church for the very high days.
So how keen was your mother on chapel?
Sorry?
How keen was your mother on chapel?
Oh, a chapel was an imperative.
Mum, what's the difference between now and before the war?
Well, before the war, everybody went to church or chapel. Nowadays, 80 years on, very few people attend church.
So before the war, why did people go to chapel and church?
Because the fear of God had been put into them. It was only 10 years before the evangelists had been created, and with all the religious fervour that went with them. And this cast a huge shadow on my youth and upbringing, in that we were all afraid of transgressing. It was a God of fear. If you didn't conform, you were punished. It was an avenging God. But by the time now, things have changed so much, and we look for a charitable, a kindly God who will be helpful. The old avenging Godhead has gone.
Do you think the chapels lost the women?
Oh, it's lost. The women were the stronghold. Yes, the remnant of the chapel going was dictated really by the fact that women no longer dressed up for a Sunday. They didn't have a new hat for a Sunday. They celebrated, or now, latterly, did not have Sunday clothes. In my childhood, women had separate clothes for Sunday.
So what Christian traditions do you think are left in South Wales?
What?
Christian traditions are left in South Wales.
Oh, they cast a long shadow. I think the church in Wales has done better than the nonconformist causes, because they were less stringent, and the Church of England was very liberal in its translation.
So when you look at the old chapels now, when you drive through the valleys, what do you think?
I think they've gone. The area of chapel going from about 1870, and they stopped building actually with the depression of the 1920s. And in my childhood, my mother's chapel had what they called a balance sheet, and in it was produced actual figures of how much every member of that chapel had contributed to the cause.
Because many of those chapels were magnificent, weren't they?
What?
The chapels were magnificent, the buildings.
Oh, the architecture, the masonry was magnificent, yes.
So what do you think the message of, why do you think the message of the chapels is no longer relevant to the congregation?
It's a very big question, isn't it? I often wonder if it won't return. Religion is an odd thing in this respect. There have been revolutions and counter-reformations and whatnot throughout history. The church, I mean the Catholic in the broader sense of the church, it's a history of vicissitudes, really, of popularity, of martyrdom, of...
So do you think that if the popularity of the church is going down, do you think the popularity of Jesus is going down? Is there a distinction between the Christian message and the message of Jesus?
The figurehead of Jesus is being confined to fundamentalism. It's becoming...
Are you sure about that? Don't you think that's a message that everybody accepts, a message of love?
Well, it should be, but it's very simplistic and very far away from the nomadic shepherd's intellect
Isn't the message
that the followers of Christ had.
Isn't the message eternal, though, that you get to God through loving your neighbour and not by following a set of rules?
Well, you're back to the Old Testament there, which differs from the Old Testament. Was a God of wrath and of anger and of fear. The message of the New Testament should be one of love and of forgiveness.
And do you think that's still relevant to South Wales, that message?
Well, people are not so bothered anymore. Remember, life was much shorter in those days. Nobody lived to be more than 30 odd.
Do you think we're more selfish now?
No, humanity is much the same as it ever was.
Wow. Okay, we'll leave it there. Say goodbye to the camera.
Goodbye, camera.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
It's very inadequate, I'm afraid.
No, I think you've done very well.